Hello, everyone, and hello to all our lovely Goodstock-Conference participants. Welcome to our Measuring the Social Impact of Volunteering session. My name is Noam Tel-Vered, and I will be moderating this session where we will focus on the still developing yet incredibly important field of impact measurement as a catalyst for the entire positive impact creation effort we all share together. We will begin with a brief introduction of myself and my colleagues, Keren, Or, and Guy, who will introduce themselves later, each dealing with impact measurement from a slightly different perspective. Then we will hold a joint discussion on what is impact measurement, the reasons it is so important, the measurements, models, and tools available today, and finally, last but not least, the incredible impact corporate volunteering can and should have on the business success. We hope you will enjoy this session and encourage you all to share your thoughts, develop a discussion, or ask questions later today. So as mentioned, my name is Noam Tel-Vered, and if I had to describe what I do in one line, I'd say that I help organizations do well by doing good. I've been a social entrepreneur for over 10 years now, founded and managed nonprofit organizations and initiatives in the education and social equality areas. To this day, I serve on the boards of several charities, doing my best to utilize business models to increase the volume and depth of their impact. While all of this is done voluntarily, my career is focused on the corporate's role in positive impact creation. I lead the corporate social responsibility consulting practice at Deloitte Israel that supports local and global organizations in implementing advanced business models in environmental, social, and governance fields. Well, since I believe that corporate social responsibility can be substantial and sustainable only when contributing to business success, my team specializes in designing management systems for social and environmental impact in core activities of firms, creating shared value for their stakeholders. So basically, I'm a true believer in the three bottom line approach, and therefore I'm working to harvest the amazing power of Deloitte as a leading and largest global consulting firm to make sure that our clients are creating social and environmental impact alongside outstanding financial performance. Let's hear from my colleagues now. Keren Or, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Noam. Hi, I'm Keren Or Rosner, Impact Innovation Consultant. I revolutionize business and organizations in promoting good in actually three ways. One, impact measurement aligned with the business model. Two, stakeholder engagement and ecosystems creation. And three, lectures, workshops, and participatory methodologies. I'm happy to be here and thank you for this opportunity.
Amazing, Keren Or, thank you so much. And now to Guy.
Thank you, Noam. Hi, everyone. Very good to be here. My name is Guy Bagel. I'm a VP of Impact Advisory Services at Social Finance Israel. I've been in the impact measurement Israeli arena for the past decade, mostly as a CEO of Midot, which is an NGO who specializes in impact measurement. And about last year, just before COVID broke out in Israel, we merged into Social Finance Israel. And since then, I've been leading the joint advisory practice. And basically, we work with all stakeholders, active in the Israeli social arena to develop cutting-edge tools and help them do good better, to just define and measure their impact. And as it goes to the volunteering impact, most of our experience is with the National Volunteering Council in Israel through Midot, developing new and cutting-edge tools for impact measurement. And I'm very looking forward to this discussion.
Amazing. So thank you both for being here with me today. I believe that each of us brings a slightly different perspective to impact measurement, working with various organizations towards various goals. And I believe this introduction is going to be further detailed now in the discussion. And maybe we should start with the very basics of what is impact and why is volunteering impact, and what is volunteering impact, I'm sorry. Guy, what do you think?
Well, I think at the most basic level, when you think about impact, the way I think about impact is in what sense did we make the world better? I think that is everything that all of us, aspire to do. And we can talk a lot about, logic models and theories of change and how do we, define our impact and how we measure our impact and the difference between outputs and outcomes. But it's basically all about, what we aim to do and how much it will bring positive social value to the world. So this is, to define impact as a whole. I think that the interesting question about volunteering impact is that volunteering impact can have two aspects. One is like regular impact, outputs, outcomes, impact, SDGs, And I think that maybe one of you will talk a little bit more about that. So in what way did the activity that we do benefit the world? But I think that when you talk about volunteering impact, there's another interesting aspect, which is in what way did the fact that we delivered the service through volunteer work, in what way did that benefit the world? So we can have the activity impact, which is the regular impact, but in what way did we affect the volunteer work? In the fact that we did a social service through volunteer work, how did it benefit the volunteers themselves? How did it benefit the beneficiaries? How did it benefit, a company that sent them to do that? And this is another aspect which is specifically unique to the volunteering impact in my perspective.
Interesting. Thank you so much for that. Keren, what do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, I totally agree with Guy. And as I see impact, and I've had the privilege in working as founding and leading the Israeli SDG community until recently, working with over 1,500 entrepreneurs and implementing impact. As I see impact basically in three ways. One is trying to address and solve a social or environmental problem. And what is the problem that we're trying to solve? In that sense, it can be educational, it can be climate change, energy, water, gender, etc. The second thing that is important to address is what is the business model and how can the impact be aligned with our revenues? And it can actually vary between business organizations and NGOs and non-profit organizations. So the revenues, or let's say income models, should be different and in different ways. And the third, last but not least, and I think that's the major focus of our conversation today, is measuring our activities and our results. In that sense that it helps us to avoid negative results, intended or unintended, but it also supports us in being able to see that we managed to receive our definition of success. So that's impact as I see it, first of all. And volunteering impact, I totally agree with Guy, and I think that it's important to look at the action of the volunteer. What are they doing and what is the problem that they're trying to solve via volunteering? It can be education, it can be promoting women in coding, like Israeli she codes, and it can be delivering food. And then you have as well the different stakeholders who are volunteering, and I think you can contribute on that sense much more. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. Thank you for that. I feel like impact is sometimes referred to as a buzzword. Like everything is impact, and it is really important to narrow it down to concrete things that we can define impact by, because I think that's the only way to make sure this is actually happening. Why is it important to measure volunteering impact? Because, I mean, we're investing significant resources in this. Organizations are struggling to do it. There are multiple methods of impact measurement. And why do we even need this mess? Keren, what's your take on this?
Yes, first of all, I want to agree and say to people who are watching us today, impact measurement is not, let's say, something that is nice to have. It's a necessity, but it has to be aligned with your core activity. It has to help you and support you as an organization. So that's the first thing. If it doesn't support you, then it's kind of a burden, by the way. And why is it important to measure? So there are several reasons, but let's say I can sum up three. One is to actually see and define success. If we know where we're heading and we have a clear path, it's much easier for us to get there and to see that we managed to create the positive good that we want to create. The second thing is basically today, philanthropy as well as the business world are allocating assets and investing according to your impact thesis or your impact measurement. So if you can articulate very clearly as an organization, as an NGO, as a business, what are you trying to solve and what are you addressing, then the best case is that it'll be easier for you to receive funding or investment. And the third thing I think is for the organization, for the employees, for the stakeholders, Of course, you're doing good, but think of how amazing it would be to say, I managed to minimize in 50% the gap between women and men in coding, for example. So you can talk facts, you can talk data, and it actually creates your message much clearer.
Absolutely. Guy, what about you? How do you see this?
Well, I totally agree with Keren Or. I mean, first of all, I mean, after being so long in the impact measurement area, I truly believe that that you can't manage what you don't measure. So basically, I think you need to measure any kind of impact in order to achieve impact. Because if you really want to achieve impact and avoid just talking about it, it's a very used buzzword, as was said before. If you want to avoid impact wash, then it's not about talking and believing that we're doing impact. It's about being able to prove both to ourselves and to our stakeholders, as Keren Or said, that we are actually achieving impact and getting better at it. I think that it goes to volunteering impact, it's even twice as more important, because I think that when you look at volunteer as a unique resource, that it's different than professional work. And there is always the risk of volunteering not being so professional or just opting out and not doing the work. And I think that if you want to manage this very unique resource, then you have to do it in a very professional and unique way. And without looking at the specific, attributes of volunteer work, and without measuring them and being good both at managing your volunteers and making them able to deliver your impact, then we're actually losing out on a lot of potential social resource that you can have either as an NGO or a company, or also as a society. So in this sense, I think that managing the volunteer impact is even twice as more important.
I absolutely agree. And I feel like to top that, I'd say that measurement is a basic business tool. And if organizations are not going to use it, they're not going to be good at what they're doing. So I always say that corporate social responsibility shouldn't be done only from an altruistic point of view. Corporate social responsibility isn't just a buzzword we're using to make sure that people are flattering our work or to make sure that our brand is stronger. It is a tool, just like any other business tool, that can and should have a clear ROI, a return on investment. And in order to make sure that we have a return on investment, we need to understand what is the return we're looking for, and in turn, what is the investment we're making, and how do these correlate. So because we believe in that and we encourage our clients to do so, I can say that it is incredibly important to make sure that impact measurement is conducted, and especially volunteering impact measurement, because it tends to be something softer that organizations tend to kind of forget, tend to kind of neglect. And unfortunately, if this is the case, then they're going to get nowhere with that. So the ROI is always going to maintain very low, and the focus isn't going to be in the right places, like both of you have mentioned. Moving on to the added value of impact measurement for the organization itself, I'd say that this is quite a complex question, because when people ask me why measure, we've just answered, but what can I earn from it? I understand I can manage it better. I understand that this is an important tool for myself to be able to better organize my volunteering work. But I want to say more than that. I want to say that by understanding that our volunteer work can affect critical financial, HR, brand, and other business indicators that we're always pursuing, is an important understanding in our way to optimize our volunteer work. So from my experience, the added value of impact measurement could be an increase in your employees' fertility, for example. Because if you understand that you're sending your employees, to volunteer on behalf of your organization, and as a result, their fertility is higher, then you as an organization might increase your revenues in turn. If your teams of employees are working better together, if they're more confident in you as an employee, or if they're more confident in themselves and therefore do their work better, they can create significant financial impact for your organization. So the ability of an organization to actually be able to increase these indicators, to make sure that these factors are harvested on their highest potential, is rooted in the ability to measure the impact of the volunteer work and optimize it accordingly. And this is true not only to the HR factors, but also to brand and reputation factors, operation factors, legal risk and compliance factors, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, this is a 360-degree kind of view of your organization from a very narrow angle, but a very effective one if you know how to manage it properly. Keren Or, what in your opinion is the added value of impact measurement?
So yeah, I really agree, first of all, with what you mentioned. And I want to add that, first of all, I think that it's important, as described before, to look at the organization as a holistic view of any organizations, because if we are a software-based organization, for example, we still have energy for our data being stored, right? So even if we don't sell a product, but of course, if we do sell a product, and it's being packaged and it's being sent and it's being delivered, and people are creating a lot of handwork in the production line. So alongside with our product, we have the human rights and people who are involved in the entire process. So I think it's very important to see that even if our company is only, right, social-oriented product, if we sell, for example, packages, we still have environmental footprint, and the things cannot be separated. And even education, by the way, that is super social oriented, it has a social as well as environmental effect. For volunteering, people drive there and share rides or whatever, or get food, right, that is being delivered to them over lunch. So I think, first of all, it's important to see the organization in a holistic way. And why is that important? I think it's important, as mentioned, to look at the positive outcome of an organization, but also at the possible risk. Because if we, as an organization, for example, volunteer in delivering food packages for the elderly, but we use volunteers who are working late and over hours and are getting underserved conditions. So in a sense, we miss the point. We create one good, but we harm the other one. So I think it's really important to look at it from a very holistic point of view to avoid wash, and also to be very minded to the fact that our customers, our stakeholders, and our beneficiaries are looking at that fact. And they're looking for honesty. They're looking for transparency. They want to buy and they want to invest their money. The Gen Z and millennials and Greta like-minded youth that are looking for value-based places to work and volunteer in. So I think it's very important to articulate that as an organization.
Absolutely. The stakeholders' view on your corporate social responsibility efforts are incredibly important, because in sometimes they would design what you do, sometimes they would reflect on what you're doing, and they can give you kind of a feedback, help direct you in the right direction. So totally. Guy, what is your take on this?
Well, I think, in my view, it all goes down to, the organizational culture. And I think that the volunteering and the measurement of the impact of volunteering is another attribute of it. So I think that basically at an organization, first of all, you want to say that you are, consciously aware, and that is why you do the volunteering in the first place. But then you are at the risk, as Keren said, of not doing it properly. And I think that what you want to articulate to your employees as volunteers is, even though we're doing this thing that we didn't have to do it, it's not part of our day-to-day business. We take it, to the full extent, in the most serious way, and we want to both see that we reach the maximum impact, and we make the best use of your time and your capabilities doing it. And I think that sends a very strong message, both to the stakeholders of the organization from the outside, as Keren Or said, and also to the employees and for the productivity, as you pointed out, Noam. And I think that in this sense, it's another very distinct attribute of the organizational culture.
Interesting. Speaking of the organizational culture, is there any case study or concrete example of volunteering impact measurement that you'd like to share? You have a lot of experience in this, and I'm sure this is going to be a very interesting topic to discuss.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to give out, one specific experience, and, without, stating out any names, but, we've done some measurement of volunteering impact to a very large Israeli firm who has a lot of volunteers, and they do a lot of events. And what we basically find out is that most of their efforts went to very large-scale events which had very large, PR profiles, but both the volunteers and the beneficiaries themselves didn't feel they were getting a lot of value out of it. And both of them were willing to put more effort into, both their employees and their own personal time. They were willing to put more hours of volunteering, but in things that were even much more meaningful, both for them and for the volunteers. And when the organization understood that, then they could make a change in their volunteering strategy in order to make it a lot more impactful, both for themselves, for the volunteers, and also to have more impact on the society.
Interesting, very interesting. We had a similar case study that we can discuss here. We supported Ruach Tova, which is the leading Israeli volunteering coordination platform today in Israel, because my team supported them in creating VIM, the Volunteering Impact Measurement Model. It is a unique model, one of a kind actually, to support organizations working with Ruach Tova to measure the impact, the business impact of corporate volunteering on the corporates themselves. So there are multiple models to measure, the impact for the beneficiaries, multiple models to measure the impact on the volunteers themselves, but not a lot of models measure the impact of the organization volunteering on the organization itself. So why should I send my employees to volunteer? Why should I even encourage that activity if it's only, if it only costs me money? But it appears that there are multiple benefits for the organization. As mentioned before, some of them are HR related, because we have seen a significant raise in all the positive factors, HR related factors of employees who were participating in corporate volunteering efforts. They were feeling more certain of their work, they were feeling more secure, and they had a great loyalty to their employer because they felt like their values are matching their employer's values, which is very important for Gen Z and Gen Y employees, which we know are now becoming a more and more significant part of the workforce. In addition to that, corporate volunteering had a dramatic effect on the corporate's impact on the brand and on the reputation. So the ability to strengthen your reputation, not only in fields of corporate responsibility, but also generally speaking, is very important. We know that brand is, in average, 20% of the net value of the organization. So strengthening your brand is super important, especially if you are working in a competitive environment, especially in the post-corona time period, where organizations are working very hard to differentiate themselves from their competitors and making sure that their impact is a part of their identity. So this is a very interesting case study because Ruach Tova managed to have over, I think it was a couple of dozens of pilot companies that have participated this program. And to this day, they're using this model, the VIM model, the Volunteering Impact Measurement Model, to support the organizations that they are helping in order to make sure that they are maximizing the ROI of their impact work.
I'd also like to add that I think, first of all, it's important from the organization perspective, and thank you for sharing WIM. I think I firstly heard about it now, so I'm gonna check it out, obviously. And two more things that I thought of are, first of all, creativity, because as people who are, let's say, hectic workers, and during COVID, it was seen that we worked even harder and longer. I think it's super important to think about creativity and being open to different mindset, different activities and inspiration. And once you get out of your common environment and you meet other people, or you volunteer remotely even, it helps, I think, being better at what you do, getting energized and receiving ideas. So in that sense, I think it's also important to bear in mind. And another thing is connectivity, because we're home contained. We are in a global pandemic period, and being able to address other people and human connection, I think, is extremely important in being loyal and connected to your brand. And I just wanted to add to that sense that I also saw Israeli NGO that are doing tree plantation. But the interesting volunteering sense here is that they were working with municipalities. And even municipalities, our NGOs and organizations are very excited about volunteering and are very minded, actually, to climate crisis and things that are going on today in the global perspective. So it's interesting to see that even if it was social, it has an environmental effect in a sense.
Absolutely. Thank you for raising that example. I feel like sometimes the separation between social and environmental is artificial completely. A lot of things, everything has its ecological footprint, but I'm also referring to sometimes causes that are purely environmental or purely social aren't really purely social or purely environmental, and we only need to know the angle we're looking from. And once we identify that environmental or that social angle, we're able to maximize the potential on that angle as well. Towards the end of our talk, is there anything else anyone would like to add on that important issue of social and the environmental impact measurement?
Just one anecdote that for me maybe summarizes the issue. One of the most interesting projects that we have had lately, we built like an online platform to measure volunteer impact for the National Israeli Volunteer Council. And we actually, did a few projects around this with an NGO who specializes and they had a lot of volunteers. So this is an NGO who was very professional in volunteer work, and they also very professional in measurement. And even though once they started to measure their volunteers themselves, they suddenly learned much more things that they didn't know before. So it was very, very valuable to them, even to organizations of who you would have thought of in advance that maybe wouldn't gain so much value from a process like this. So I think, and it goes both to measurement and also to the volunteer impact measurement, that I think that don't be so sure of what you know. You always find more and more, blind spots in order to make you better. There is no, this is why Midot's logo is do good better. There is no end goal. It's always about getting better. And I think that measurement, and especially volunteer measurement, is a necessary process in this long way to impact.
Absolutely, I feel like that as well. And from our experience, this is even more highlighted when you're talking about global organizations, where they have massive resources invested in social or environmental impact, and specifically in volunteering social or environmental impact. And sometimes they are not even aware of the other benefits they can get from this kind of activity, and they're not maximizing their return on investment, like I mentioned before. So we definitely see eye to eye, and I feel like even though we represent three completely different perspectives, we still have a very unified way of seeing this. To sum up this session, I'd say that we welcome all of our listeners and viewers to become involved in impact measurement processes. We feel like implementing these processes can help your organizations, whether you are an NGO, a nonprofit organization, a municipality, a national government agency, even a corporate, of course. Because we believe that volunteering impact measurement is super important. It can help your organization better manage the program and, of course, benefit the most out of it. So thank you very much for being with us, and have a wonderful day.